Today, we're going to learn how to run R code from within SAS Enterprise Guide. In order to follow along with this tutorial, you're going to need admin privileges on the computer that you're using. We're going to start by opening up File Explorer, and we're going to navigate to the configuration file for our installation of SAS. This file might be located in a slightly different location depending on your computer and your installation of SAS, but I'll show you where it's located on my computer. So first I'm going to go to C drive, then Program Files, followed by SAS Home, then x86, SAS Foundation, the version of SAS that you have installed. Then you're looking for a folder called NLS, then EN, and then you should see your SAS configuration file. From here, if you have admin privileges, you can right-click on the SAS configuration file and go to Properties, go to Security, and then you want to see whether there is Modify Access allowed. So by default, it's not going to be allowed because if you change anything incorrectly in this file, you will break your installation of SAS. So you should only do this if you know for sure what you're doing, because any small changes could break everything. So if you want to add Modify Access, just click on Edit. Assuming you have admin privileges on the computer that you're using, you should be able to add Modify Access by clicking the Allow checkmark. Then you can press Apply and then press OK. Press OK again, and now you should be able to edit the configuration file. Again, make sure you're being extremely careful when you do this. Do not change anything else that's not in this video, unless you know what you're doing. Next, we're going to right-click on the file and we're going to open it with a text editor. And we're going to change one thing in this file. Only one thing, do not change anything else. So under this big block that says warning, and in between the line that says do not edit below this line, you're going to add a single line to this configuration file that says -RLANG. Do not change anything else. Once you've added that line in there, you can save the file, exit it, and then it's a best practice to remove that Modify Access that you had added a second ago. So to do that, we're going to right-click on it again, click Properties, go back to the Security tab, and then remove those permissions that we added a second ago. Again, we're going to press Edit, and assuming we have admin privileges, we can then remove those permissions, press Apply, then press OK. So now, assuming that you have both SAS and R installed on your computer, you should now be able to open up SAS Enterprise Guide and use R from within SAS Enterprise Guide. So I'm going to start by creating a new program. And anytime you create a new program in SAS that you want to use R in, the first thing that you need to write is the following: proc options, option equals RLANG, and then run. From here, you're going to want to run this and make sure that the configuration file was actually properly set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this bit of code, and assuming that I did everything properly, what I should see is a statement somewhere in the log that mentions RLANG enables SAS to execute R language statements. So if you don't see this message, or you see something that kind of sounds like the opposite of this message, then that means that you either don't have R installed or the configuration file edit did not go as planned. If you do see a message like this, that means you're ready to use R from within SAS Enterprise Guide. So now we'll do a very quick demo to go over the most common stuff that you're probably going to want to know how to do. The first thing we'll learn is how to export a SAS dataset to R and manipulate it. So to do this, we're going to use proc IML. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a SAS dataset and turn it into an R data frame. So to do that, I'm going to type call and then export dataset to R. The first argument is going to be the name of the SAS dataset. So in this example, I'm going to use sashelp.class, and the second argument is going to be the variable name that we want to assign the data frame to in R. So I'm going to call this dataset class df. Now to actually execute R code from within SAS, we're going to use a submit statement, and we're going to pass the option R. At the bottom, we're going to put an end submit, and now anything that goes in between those two lines of code is going to be executed as R code rather than as SAS code. So let's take a quick look at what this data set looks like in SAS. So we've got the variables name, sex, age, height, and weight. So let's say we want to create a very simple linear regression model where we're trying to predict weight using the explanatory variables sex, age, and height. So here I'm going to use the lm function in R to create that simple linear regression model. Next, I'm going to use the summary function on that linear model object that we just created. I'm going to extract the model coefficients. And finally, I'm going to display those model coefficients. So now I'm going to run this bit of code. And in the results tab, I should now see the coefficients for that model. Now you'll notice that some of the symbols are a little bit off, but ultimately you can see the model coefficients, which is pretty exciting. Okay, so what else can we do using proc.iml? One thing that we cannot do is reuse our variables that we've created in a previous proc.iml step in a new one. So just to demonstrate that quickly, here I'm just going to demonstrate that in this new proc.iml step, I'm going to assign the variable x to be 3 and then display that value. And then I'm also going to try to display the lmod coefs object that we created in the last proc.iml step. And if I run this, what we'll see is the object is not found. So basically what this means is until you're done with a variable that you've created in R, you should not use the end submit. So keep everything in one proc.iml step until you know for sure that you're done with a variable in R. Next, we're going to look at loading packages, which works exactly as you would expect, assuming that the package is already installed. So I'm going to try to load in the mass package from R. And inside the mass package, there's a data set called cabbages. So let's try to use that data set to verify that the mass package was actually correctly loaded. So I'm going to create a linear model using the cabbages data set. And we're going to predict vitamin C using some of the other variables from the cabbages data set as our explanatory variables. So when I run this, if I get no errors, what that's going to tell me is that the mass package was correctly loaded in and the linear model using the cabbages data frame from the mass package was correctly created. And we can see that that worked exactly as we expect. So loading a package is very simple. You do what you would just normally do in R. So earlier we saw how we could send a SAS dataset to R, but what if we want to do the reverse? So next we'll see how do we take an R data frame and send it back to SAS. So using the example that we had before, let's say I want to take the cabbages data frame and send that to SAS so that we can manipulate it using SAS rather than R. So inside the two submit lines, I'm going to again load the mass package, and then outside of the submit statement, I'm going to use call import dataset from R. The first argument is going to be the name of the SAS dataset that you'd like to send to. You can specify a library first, or if you don't specify a library, then by default it's going to go to your work or your temporary library. So I'm going to call this SAS cabbages. And then the second argument is going to be the name of the data frame from R that you would like to send to SAS. So that's the cabbages data frame from the mass package. So let's run this. And we can now see that the cabbages data frame has been converted to a SAS data set called SAS cabbages that we can now manipulate in SAS however we'd like. Now, so far we've seen that whenever we run R code from within SAS Enterprise Guide, we can actually see the outputs over here in the results tab. This is not true all the time. So if there's something like a plot or something interactive, for example, we're not going to be able to see that in SAS Enterprise Guide. With that being said, we can use R to create plots and so on, and then save those files on our computer to view them on our computer rather than from within SAS Enterprise Guide. So for this final example, we're going to create a plot by calling R from within SAS Enterprise Guide. We're going to save that plot locally on our computer, and then we're going to verify that that plot looks as we expect it to look. So for this example, we're going to recreate the plot here using the ggalluvial package. And the code that you see on screen here is from the ggalluvial vignette, which is a package that works with ggplot to create Sankey diagrams, or alluvial plots. So I'm just going to copy this code, and back in SAS Enterprise Guide, I'm going to paste that code directly. And if I have both the tidyverse package and the ggalluvial package installed in R, I should be able to run this code no problem in SAS Enterprise Guide. I'm going to take a wild guess and assume that most of you watching this video have not used the ggalluvial package before. So with that being said, you probably don't have the ggalluvial package installed on your computer. So at this point, there are two options. You can either install directly from R, such as by using RStudio, or you can install packages from within SAS Enterprise Guide. To demonstrate how that works, I'm going to pick that option. So I'm going to use the install.packages function, and the package that I want to install is called ggalluvial. But if I just pass this, it's not going to work. Unlike when I'm using R directly, I'm going to have to specify the repository that I want to install the package from. So here we're going to specify the CRAN repository. So the full link is here. And then assuming that that gets installed properly, we're going to want to load that package as well as load tidyverse, which will allow us to use the ggplot function. So on the first line, we're installing the ggalluvial package. Next, we're loading the tidyverse and ggalluvial packages. We're creating a ggplot. And finally, if we want to be able to view this plot, we're going to have to save it to a file on our computer because SAS Enterprise Guide won't render that for us. So I'm going to use the ggsave function, and then I'm going to pass a file location where I'd like this plot to be saved on my computer. Now I'm going to run this code, and let's see whether the package gets installed correctly and the plot looks as we expect it to. So I got an error, and the reason why is because I forgot to specify that this address that I'm passing is the repository argument. So I'm going to type repos equals, and that should hopefully fix the problem. So after a couple of minutes, it looks like the ggalluvial package was successfully installed. That's promising. Next, let's take a look at the outputted plot. And there we have it. It worked exactly as expected. As a best practice, I'm going to either comment out or remove the install.packages line because if I go and run this SAS script later, I don't want to try to reinstall that package, which is going to take a few minutes and potentially could break the installation of that package. So I'm just going to comment that out. And remember that anything that you type in between these two submit lines is going to be executed as R code. So if you want to comment out some R code, you can use the hashtag the same way you would in R. In this video, we learned how to edit the SAS configuration file to add the RLANG option. We learned how to send datasets back and forth from R and SAS. We learned how to install and load R packages from within SAS Enterprise Guide. And we learned how to create plots and save them on our computer using R from within SAS Enterprise Guide.